Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Headbanger's Closet. So tonight is Thanksgiving Eve. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. But whenever Thanksgiving rolls around, I think about Slayer. Why do I do that? Well, number one, they're one of my favorite bands. I've been lucky enough to see them many, many times live. But when I first moved to Georgia way back in August of 2004, the very first concert I ever saw as a resident of Georgia was Slayer. It was on Thanksgiving Eve. And they played at this really cool place called the Tabernacle in Atlanta. If you've never been, great venue. I highly recommend if one of your favorite bands ever comes down here and is going to play the Tabernacle. Highly recommend everybody coming down, making a destination concert out of it. Such a great venue. It's an old Catholic church. They took out all the benches and seats and everything, and it's now a venue. Now it's got the old Catholic organ pipes right behind the stage. Now many different bands and artists and genres play there, but it's really funny when Slayer does. It's Slayer playing in a Catholic church, an old Catholic church. So it's kind of funny. I laughed when I heard the story and I was seeing Slayer there. But anyway, so they came in November of 2004. It was the very first concert, like I said, as a resident of Georgia. It was them headlining. I don't know what the tour was, but they did Rain and Blood in its entirety. And Hatebreed and Arch Enemy were in direct support. So great show. I was able to get front row rail right in front of Jeff Hanneman. Even got a guitar pick from Hanneman. Awesome show. Really set the bar for my first concert in Atlanta. I mean, still one of my all-time favorite Slayer shows to this day. In fact, my two favorite Slayer shows ever, both were in Atlanta, and I'll get to that second one in a minute. But so it kind of brought me to this video. I wanted to talk about Slayer. They're one of my favorite bands. Like I said, I don't really talk about them as much on this channel as other bands. But I love them. I've got their entire discography, CD, vinyl, OG presses. I got reissues, and thankfully Metal Blade a few years ago put out some really cool reissues of those early Slayer records, because a couple of my OGs are in just such bad shape that if I actually try to take the record out of the sleeve, it's going to completely rip in half. The sleeve, that is, just really, really bad shape. And my OG Rain and Blood's got massive water damage, and I just don't even like to take it off the shelf anymore. It's not even cool just to show because it's so bad. I got to find another one. Anyway, so for this video, I'm going to talk about Slayer. We're going to do my favorite, deep cuts off these albums, and I'm going to go in order. All these songs and records, for me, with the exception of one album, these are all going to come from the best era of Slayer, the 80s. So let's get right to it. Oh, well, one of them is going to be in the 90s, but you get the picture. So let's get right to it. The debut record, Show No Mercy, came out in December of 1983. Awesome record. I did a video a couple years ago on this album where I pitted it against Hell Awaits. Two albums I really, really love by Slayer, but kind of get overlooked because of the big three: Rain and Blood, South of Heaven, and Seasons in the Abyss. But Show No Mercy, for me, deserves to be up there with the big three, just because it's a great album. Really love how it sounds like Judas Priest, and you may or may not know that Kerry King is a huge Judas Priest fan. This whole album is just almost like a Judas Priest homage. It's not like a ripoff or Judas Priest love clone or anything like that. It's just, you can hear the influence. So the three songs I picked, it's Metal Storm, Face the Slayer, one song, then Black Magic and Tormentor. Now, Black Magic, probably my all-time favorite Slayer song. It's not really a deep cut, but when you listen to them, on streaming or on CD, they kind of come, one right after another, and that's what I like about Black Magic so much. It's sandwiched between these two songs. It just really goes well together, so I wanted to include it. But Metal Storm, Into Face the Slayer. Metal Storm's a really cool instrumental. Into Face the Slayer, which has such an awesome, catchy guitar riff, very Judas Priest-like. Then it goes into Black Magic, and then it goes into Tormentor, which again has another super catchy guitar riff, very Judas Priest-like as well. And I just absolutely love this record, can't get enough of it. And this one is on, this is Metal Blade reissue there from a few years ago, on black and red splatter. And the next one is the EP, Haunting the Chapel, which came out in June of '84. And I wanted to include the EP just because I wanted to show another record, but mainly because this one's another Metal Blade reissue, black and white. But anyway, I wanted to show this EP because Chemical Warfare is my pick on this, as well as the title track, Haunting the Chapel. Chemical Warfare is a great tune. Kind of overlooked. I know they played it live many times, and it's basically a staple in their live shows. But it's such a great song. Really wanted to include it in this and show the EP, Haunting the Chapel. So that one and the title track, Haunting the Chapel, the two songs off that are on my overlooked deep cuts list. And the next one is Hell Awaits. This is the second full length record that came out in March 1985. And this one, to me, when you're talking about the best Slayer records, like the first one up through Seasons in the Abyss, I kind of feel this is the weakest one. And mainly because it doesn't sound that great. Show No Mercy is much better produced, in my opinion, than Hell Awaits. It's too low in volume. I don't think the guitar riffs, the guitar sound as a whole is loud as it should be. But still, overall, a great record. Title track, absolutely amazing. Some of my favorite Slayer tunes. But I'm going to have to go with Hardening of the Arteries and At Dawn They Sleep. Love At Dawn They Sleep. Great song. Just like Chemical Warfare, it's often in Slayer's set list up until recently. But two great tunes, overlooked tracks on this album. And this is another Metal Blade reissue. Orange and black splatter, pretty cool. Moving right along and staying in chronological order is the next album. It's Rain and Blood, which came out October of 1986. And what many people think is the greatest thrash record of all time. Best Slayer record. I don't agree with either one of those statements, but still an absolute banger of an album. And I picked this one up a while back, good many years ago, actually. I think I actually brought this. I don't remember where I got this, to be honest, but I've had it for a while. It's on Geffen Records. It's on Translucent Red, and I don't think I've ever seen that before. But awesome record. I actually love this picture. It's my favorite picture of the guys in Slayer. Really, really cool. But for this one, my overlooked tracks probably would be Jesus Saves, Altar of Sacrifice, Criminally Insane, and Epidemic. Epidemic just has that killer, badass riff after this guitar solo. So those are my three overlooked tracks. And a lot of these, Slayer plays live, but when you might look at the top 20 Slayer tunes, these might not be on that list. But for me, they are. So keep moving right along. The next one we have 1988, July 1988, South of Heaven. Now this one right here is my all-time favorite Slayer album. Absolute beast of a record. This is my OG right here on Def Jam Records. I don't want to pull it out. It's split right there, so if I pull out the actual record, I don't make any damage. But really like this. I kept it with the hype sticker on there. I've had this thing for years. Brought it with me to Georgia, and actually thought I brought it with me to Georgia. Come to find out, it was still in a box back home. Had to have it shipped to me, and with a handful of other records. But Show No Mercy, July 1988. And this one's hard for me because this is my favorite Slayer album. I'm going to go with a handful. Live Undead's great. Behind the Crooked Cross is amazing. Read Between the Lies is great. Spill the Blood's awesome. So those would probably be, Ghost of War. So those would be my I basically named the entire freaking record. But those are going to be my favorite overlooked tracks. If I had to pick one as the most overlooked, I would have to say Read Between the Lies. I grew up Catholic, so Read Between the Lies to me is kind of, just resonance hits a chord with me because, it's kind of funny. It has kind of a lot to do with that, upbringing that I had, being raised that way. But awesome record, favorite Slayer album. And I don't think, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that a lot of my favorite bands, my favorite records might change. There are two bands that come to mind off the top of my head, Metallica and Slayer. My favorite Metallica record and my favorite Slayer record will never change. The other ones often flip-flop, depending on what I'm listening to that week or that month. So moving right along, almost finished here. We have 1990s, October 1990 rather. Seasons in the Abyss, another bitchin' album. This was probably my favorite album for a long time, and then I just kind of listened to South of Heaven just over and over again when I was in college, and it took the cake. But awesome record nonetheless. There's a reissue on Orange. Another great album where it's really tough to pinpoint some overlooked tracks because they're all so great, but I would have to go with Blood Red, Expendable Youth, Skeletons of Society, maybe Born of Fire. Skeletons of Society being my favorite song on the record. Just such a great, cool, heavy, but slow chugging riff with awesome dueling guitar leads and dive bombs throughout the song from Carrie and Jeff. Just awesome song. Probably my top 5 favorite Slayer songs of all time. Then last record we have is an album where I thought they kind of returned to form. They did kind of 3 albums in the 90s that I didn't think were that good. Undisputed Attitude, Diabolic, and Musica, and I just forget the other one. But they weren't that great in my opinion. This one is a return to form. God Hates Us All. And absolutely love this record. When this thing came out, I bought it on CD and was completely blown away. Just because of those other 3. Now I had those other 3 albums, but I just didn't like them as much. They just didn't really sound like Slayer to me. Diabolica, Musica had some good tunes. The other 2, I barely even listen to them. I might listen to some songs if it comes on shuffle, but I'm not really picking those albums off the shelf and listening to them. This one's much different. I absolutely love this record, and everything they've put out since this, in my opinion, has been vintage Slayer. But we're going to end it on this one. This is a reissue I picked up not too long ago, gatefold. Just black vinyl, standard black vinyl. So pretty cool. But we're going to go with the, again, tough because I love this album so much. But we're going to go with God Send Death, New Faith, and Bloodline. Bloodline being from, I forgot what movie it was, vampire movie, like from the motion picture soundtrack, but just great song. But God Send Death and New Faith, 2 songs that are just absolute rippers. And, if you like the Slayer's early stuff, you're going to like this album as well. Such a great record. I really like when they play these songs live. They sound really, really good. This tour was awesome. And then the subsequent tour where they just continued with the upside down crosses on like the cloth thing that hangs out from the stage, and the crosses rotate, then they drop and start playing. And they kind of took that from this tour and they used it with a lot of the other tours, which kind of brings me to my story to conclude the video. We're going on 12 minutes here, so hopefully everybody's continuously watched me ramble. But anyway, was able to see Slayer on their farewell final campaign tour in Atlanta. Awesome bill. It was Napalm Death, Testament, Anthrax, Lamb of God, and Slayer. And I'm sitting there watching Napalm Death and Testament and Anthrax. And I'm in the pit. It's at an outdoor amphitheater. I got a pit ticket right in the front. Went by myself. And I'm in there. I got my phone. I'm taking some awesome pictures of Napalm Death, Testament, and Anthrax. And I kind of just forget where I'm at for a second, And Lamb of God comes on, and I took a few pictures of the guys for the first few songs, put my phone in my pocket, and no sooner does that phone go in my pocket, and then I just get trucked. Some dude levels me, and it was a miracle that my glasses stayed on. But I'm on the ground, 4 or 5 people, and there's no pit. It's just this guy. There's no mosh pit going on. Everyone just, it's like the first song from Lamb of God. Everyone just bum rushes the front and kind of gets as close as possible. And I was still kind of standing midway, middle of the pit, kind of midway back, getting awesome photos, completely forgetting where I was. And when Lamb of God came on, and I need to move back or to the side, right? I'm athletic, I'm muscular, but I'm not the biggest dude around, right? I only weigh like $175. This dude trucks me. I'm on the ground, like, what the fuck just happened? Right? So a couple people pick me up, and the dude, I look up and he's looking at me like, not apologetic at all, or like any sorry, knocking you over. He's looking at me like, what the hell are you doing here? And he's got his shirt off, and he's just ripped like he's a pro wrestler, right? And right on his chest, he's got the Slayer tattooed right above his breast. And underneath is a huge black Nazi symbol, swastika. So it says Slayer's got the swastika. I look at him, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm at a Slayer show. I gotta move somewhere I'm not gonna get killed. So I end up moving back, between Lamb of God and Slayer. I move up to the front, and I end up getting a rail right in front of Kerry King, which was super cool because Gary Holt came over a lot to that side as well, playing the guitar. So awesome show, super memorable. Probably number 3 on my all-time favorite Slayer shows list. Probably behind that Tabernacle show, which is just badass. But that's my story. That's the last time I saw Slayer. Really wanted to go see them in LA to conclude their career. I wasn't able to make it, but saw them on the farewell last campaign tour, and that was my story. So awesome show, despite me getting the shit knocked out of me. Had a blast. All the bands kicked ass. So anyway, those are my overlooked, deep cut favorite Slayer tracks. You guys Tell me what you want them. I'm not allowed to ask you to leave me a comment if I recall correctly. So anyway, but if you want to talk about them, do so. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I'll have another video for you guys very soon, and hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. Cheers, everybody.